Okay. The next is contingency theory, where leadership is being more flexible. Okay. Different leadership styles used at different times depending on the circumstances. So if you're in a certain circumstance, you're going to use a different leadership approach, different leadership style than you might otherwise use. So in a situation where there's an emergency, someone has a heart attack, you might say, I'm going to use the autocratic approach. I'm going to start giving orders, just like a military commander would on the field, and that's going to solve the situation. Contingency theory would say that if you want to develop a certain level of creativity in your group, that you should try and use a more democratic leadership approach. Okay? So we're trying to understand, with contingency theory, what leadership approach should I use? What leadership style should I use? It also suggests that leadership is not a fixed series of characteristics and can be transposed into different contexts. Okay? So the context of the situation determines what leadership approach you might use. Okay? And this may obviously depend on some of the situational factors, number of people you have, the history of the organization, the culture of the organization, the quality of the relationships within your organization, the nature of the changes needed, and accepted norms within the institution or organization. Okay, so what is the accepted norms? Okay, the next one here is one of my favorites. It's called transformational. You might have heard of transformational leadership before, seen books on it on the shelf. What exactly is it? Well, transformational leadership is transforming an organization to be more than the sum of its parts, or transforming other people into leaders. Okay? So you're essentially transforming your organization, or you're transforming other people. It's useful when you need to introduce widespread changes to a business organization, but it requires long-term strategic planning. Remember, we're trying to develop leaders. That happens over a very long time. Okay? You can't just sit down with someone in an afternoon and turn them into leaders. It takes a long time of them continuing to practice their leadership skills, developing. It also requires clear objective, a clear vision, leading by example, because if you're the person who's a transformational leader, you are the person who's turning other people into leaders and transforming an organization. Okay, and it depends somewhat on the efficiency of systems and processes. Okay, so we had trait theory. Leadership is a series of traits. Behavioral theory. You can train leaders in two ways, structure or relationships. We have contingency theory, where leadership depends on the certain situation you're in. And we have transformational leadership, where we're transforming our organization or other people into leaders. Okay, the next one is invitational leadership. This is by far the newest one. It's only come out in the last few years. Okay? And this is where a follower meets the leader's goals as a condition of his or her success. So think of it like this. You invite other people to join you in a leadership endeavor. So say you start a new organization like WATSI. You say to the people, okay, I'm doing this, you're welcome to come along. And that's exactly what leadership, or invitational leadership is. And that's one that I've tried to use with the organization. Okay? It depends on mutual commitment between colleagues instead of orders given down the hierarchy. Okay? Sometimes you need a little bit of organization, but with this theory of leadership, okay, depends on mutual commitment between colleagues. So everyone who's in the organization has a commitment to it. Everyone wants to achieve what the goal and vision of the organization is. Everyone wants the end. Okay? And everyone's just walking on the same path together. And that was the next point. It also builds relationships and a sense of belonging and identity with the organization. And that gets communicated to, of course, the members and other people outside of the organization. Okay? So this one is a very powerful one. It says, I'm going, who wants to come with me? Let's go together. Let's build a team. Let's work together and achieve this goal. And so it's a very powerful one. Okay? This last theory here is transactional. You might have heard this one before. This is an older theory where it focuses on management of an organization. And essentially, it's the, I do this for you, you do this for me. So every interaction between you and one of your followers, or you and your leader, is a transaction. Okay? You go to your boss, they say, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. Okay? And that can be as simple as, I pay you, so do what I tell you to do. So it's every situation is a transaction. And there's no higher goal, there's nothing to aspire to, there's no invitational leadership. It's purely, we're working together. Okay? So it's important to realize which one of these are superior. Certainly transformational superior, invitational superior, and it's important to realize when someone might be using contingency theory is also a good one, behavioral theory, you can train leaders. But some of these trait theories, not everyone has to have the same traits to be a leader, but you might want to work on a couple traits that you find value in. And we want to stay away from stuff like transactional, where you're working for me, you're going to do exactly what I tell you. Okay? We need to inspire people more in leadership. Leadership is an ever-changing situation, and if we want to really have success as an organization, we have to start using some of these skills. Okay? And if you recognize in your boss or in other people that they're using a style or applying a theory that doesn't really help the organization, that's why people need to learn leadership. Okay, this is a bit on change leadership. So we all know that the most challenging aspect of running any organization is leading and managing change. Okay, how do you go from an organization which is failing, which doesn't do very much, to an organization that achieves outstanding success? Okay. We all know that organizations are subject to fast-paced economic and social change. Certainly, it's in school clubs. There's a lot of social change that happens. People move on to different interests. And how do we manage that? Okay, modern organizations must adapt and be flexible to survive, and problems in leading change stem mainly from human resource management. Okay, so when we're trying to deal with change, we need to manage our people. We need to get them together and working together. Okay? And that's where we have the two differences between social and task cohesion, right? If people can work really well together and accomplish a task, they have good task cohesion. If they get along well interpersonally, and after work or after running an organization, they like to be friends, they enjoy working together, that's good social cohesion. So you want, ideally, in an organization to have both of those, social cohesion and task cohesion, right? You could have factory workers who are great at assembling an automobile together, but then after work they all hate each other, right? Or you could have people who are great friends but don't do any work, right? So ideally, you need to break it down into those two different areas and work on those two areas. Okay, and we also need to be aware of how change impacts any of our followers. Okay, so those were the different theories of leadership we talked about. Okay, adding at the end there, transformational, invitational, and transactional. What I'm going to talk about now is some different leadership situations. This is called the CAR model, competency, authority, responsibility. So competencies are the skills and abilities needed to accomplish the job assigned. They break down into 4 general categories: physical, intellectual, emotional, and interpersonal. Authority. Authority defines a leader's domain of influence, the degree to which he or she is empowered to act, and the scope of the power resources available to enact his or her will. Authority is assigned from external sources, or that which a person earns by personal credibility. Okay, so you can get authority given to you by a superior boss or someone who's elected in government or something of that effect, or you can earn it through your personal credibility, right? You're an authority on a certain subject because of the work you've done. And finally, responsibility. Responsibility is the degree to which an individual accepts the liability matching their authority. So how much is that person taking responsibility for what authority they have? Responsibility is externally generated, extrinsic, and internally generated, intrinsic. So someone can tell you, you're responsible for this project, or you can accept responsibility to say, you know what, I will run that project. Okay? So it can be internal or external. Externally imposed responsibility must be accepted. Someone can't tell you, you have responsibility to do this, and then if you don't accept that responsibility, there's no responsibility in that case, right? It has to be accepted. The individual must be willing to be held accountable before it is effective. Okay. Intrinsic or internal responsibility is a degree of self-generated obligation towards the task and the people associated with it. So let's look at some different situations here. Okay. A good leadership situation implies balance among competency, authority, and responsibility. So when all these things are matched, you're competent, you